Okay, so imagine a system, right? A system that could predict NFL games with like crazy accuracy. I mean, so good it didn't lose for over 2 months. Today, we're diving into this really fascinating experiment to do just that, and more importantly, what happens when that perfect streak finally shatters. You heard that right. For 9 straight weeks, from the very first game of the season all the way through week 9, this data-driven system was just flawless. It wasn't just winning here and there, it was undefeated week after week. It honestly felt like someone had finally cracked the NFL code. And then, well, it happened. The streak breaker. After 9 incredible weeks, the system just hit a brick wall and took its very first loss of the season. So that leaves us with some big questions, doesn't it? How did it finally fail? What's actually under the hood of this thing? And, the most important question of all, can it actually bounce back? Let's break it all down, the models, the loss, and the plan for a comeback. First thing you gotta understand is that this isn't just one single magical formula. Nope. It's actually a team of 4 totally distinct predictive models, and each one has its own way of looking at the game. So the first 3 models, we'll call them A, B1, and B2. They're what you might call static. All of their predictions for the entire season were locked in way back in August. Now, the main difference between them is their philosophy. Algorithm A is all about offense. It gives that more weight. The B models, though, they play it straight, giving equal importance to both offense and defense. And then there's algorithm C. This one's the wild card. It didn't even get going until week 5. And unlike the others, this one is adaptive. It actually uses real in-season data, which means it's learning and changing its mind as the season goes on. It's a totally different beast. And this isn't some black box project from a giant company. It's a very personal, very public experiment. The creator, Michael Tofta Jr., puts everything out there, the wins, the losses, all of it, as a way to test his models and really to hold himself accountable. Okay, let's get into it. Let's do a little autopsy on this losing week. Because if you really want to understand what went wrong, you have to look at the system's most confident predictions. And that brings us to this really important term, unanimous picks. These are the games where every single algorithm, all 4 of them, despite their different approaches, all agree on the same winner. These are supposed to be the slam dunks, the sure things. And here it is. This is where the wheels completely fell off. For those first 9 weeks, the unanimous picks were a powerhouse, sitting at an impressive 26-10. But in week 10, that record just tanked to 4-4, a perfect .500. All of a sudden, the system's surest bet was no better than a coin toss. But wait, here's a really crucial detail. While the unanimous strategy completely failed that week, some of the individual models actually did pretty well. The creator aims for 8 correct picks each week, and guess what? Both algorithms B1 and B2 hit that exact number. So the overall system stumbled, yeah, but some of its core parts were still working just fine. So, after a big stumble like that, what's the next move? Well, you get right back to the data. Let's take a look at what the algorithms are cooking up for their big Week 11 comeback attempt. It looks like the system is doubling down on what worked before. It's identified 6 new unanimous picks for the week. That means all 4 algorithms are in total agreement on these 6 games. These are the high-confidence plays meant to get everything back on track. Now, those consensus picks are one thing. But for me, the most interesting part of this whole experiment is when the models actually contradict each other. That's when you really get to see their different personalities clash. And this Chiefs versus Broncos game is a perfect example. Just look at this split. The old-school, preseason models, A and B1, have the Chiefs winning by a touchdown. But B2 and that new adaptive algorithm C, they're actually calling for a huge upset, picking the Broncos to win by a single point. This really brings us to the most important point of all. This whole experiment isn't about winning every single week. It's about a long-term philosophy. So let's zoom out for a second and understand what the creator's real goal is here. The creator uses this amazing analogy to explain his definition of success. He's not trying to be perfect. He's trying to perform like an S&P 500 index fund. He's not trying to pick that one stock that's going to triple overnight. He's building a portfolio designed for steady, long-term growth. And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Any single week, just like a single stock, can have a bad day. But the goal is consistent performance over the long haul. And he's got a track record to back it up. The original version of his main algorithm correctly picked 10 out of 14 playoff teams 3 years in a row, before the season even started. It's about being successful overall, not perfect every time. So what does successful overall even mean? Well, the author points to the benchmark used by professional sports gamblers. To actually make money, they only need to be right about 55 to 57% of the time. That's the real target here. Not perfection, but a consistent, profitable edge. And for anyone who wants to follow along, the creator has one simple piece of advice. Don't jump between the different models from week to week. Just pick one algorithm whose logic makes sense to you and stick with it through the good weeks and the bad. Consistency is everything. Which brings us right back to where we started. The system has faced its first real test. It took the hit, it analyzed the data, and it's made its new bets. The only question left is the one that no amount of data can answer until those games are actually played. After its first major test, will the algorithm bounce back?